because they're one of those teams.
That Warriors team. What's going on here? Has lost access to your Periscope. Okay, don't worry about that. Who cares? Go live.
Mate.
What's going on? Oh, okay. Are we live? I don't know if we're live. Are we live? Yeah, we're
Yes,
live.
we
Sorry,
are live.
people. Yeah, we are live. Sorry about that. It's just, a few technical difficulties on my end there. But hey, welcome. Obviously, I'm not Paul because I've got a brown face and he's got a brown face. So we're not Paul. Paul's at the game today, so he's been at a fantastic game. You'd have to say, wouldn't you, Steve?
Super game, mate. Super game.
Super game. Look, interesting. What I've already forgotten the score. What 1 point in it, 2 points in it, but it's amazing. We talked about it every time the Crusaders went down there, they got points. But I felt like you didn't actually feel like the Crusaders were ever in that game. It was just that when they were down in the red zone, they got points and they went away with points. But other than that, it never felt like they were in the game.
Yeah, I think I might have messaged during our rugby chat. It kind of reminded me of the Blues when they played the Chiefs. Same sort of scenario. The Chiefs were playing all the rugby without getting the points, and the Blues probably just needed one more score to make it safe. And once again, we saw the same today with the Crusaders. I think if they had probably just stretched out that lead a little bit more, but when you're playing a team like the Chiefs and you keep them in the fight, they're one of those sort of teams. I think you leave the door open, and that's what we saw.
But just before we came on, we were sort of talking about that, and it's like that other oval ball code with the team out of Auckland, where they same sort of thing. It's just like they just be able to create a win like they did against the Blues, and they sort of did it sort of tonight as well. Basically got that penalty over with about 3 minutes left on the clock. They're able to just get those wins, and if you turn it back to last night, Although we had a try scored with 30 seconds left on a clock, you knew that the Blues were never going to be able to score a try like the Chiefs can do.
Exactly. They're one of those sides that is very creative, and they operate on really, really quick ball movement, and they rely on these skills. If you actually think about it, Ashwin, probably at the times where they actually did have the Crusaders totally on the rack, they just made little turnover skills, because all that movement, they're able to create a lot of pressure.
Yep, absolutely. Look, it's an interesting one, because if we go and look at it, they were obviously outscored by tries on the scoreboard. But one thing tonight's showing, and it's a shift in the landscape, is that teams are now taking their threes, particularly against the Crusaders. Teams are taking their threes, and we saw, even if you're not getting ahead of the Crusaders, you're staying in touch by taking your threes.
Oh, very, very much so. And for the first time in a long time, injuries after about 4 or 5 seasons are now starting to bite the Crusaders. As right at the end, Brad Weber said, "Listen, we know that wasn't their top side, but we'll take the win." I see Nocturnal said it before that the Crusaders game plan is busted. Yeah, maybe, but once again, you start losing a lot of personnel. I, for one, if you're writing them off on their game plan, you'd be foolish to write them off.
Oh, you'd be foolish to write them off. But what I think the Highlanders, and even though, look, in Brad Weber's talking about a depleted Crusaders side, for want of a term. But at the end of the day, you can only play who's in front of you, right? I mean, you can't you're not selecting the team to face. So you can only play the team in front of you. You have to sort of say, we have pot shots at other coaching. You'd have to say, did Scott Robertson underestimate the Chiefs?
Well, they probably, I don't know if it's a case of underestimating the Chiefs. There are just times you've got to rest guys. If you basically look around and see guys getting tired, you've got to rest them. Listen, they had the team there to do the damage tonight. If you really want to be picky about it, you think back. What was the most important moment in that game? Most important moment in that game was Richie Mo'unga's conversion from a handy position, hitting the upright.
Absolutely.
That goes over. And they probably just keep the game out of reach.
Out of reach.
From the Chiefs.
Yep. Or they get, the Chiefs are going to have to do the more expansive play. When they take that last penalty, they're going to have to actually know they can't go to the penalty. Probably going to have to kick for the corner. which now you haven't got guaranteed points coming. You've got to convert it. So, what
Well,
what about your like? So I know you were sort of the Crusaders shouldn't have taken their last penalty. They should have gone for a scrum. Now, in saying that, they had the new front row had come on, and the Chiefs actually did sort of get dominance over them in the scrum. So, do you still think that the Crusaders
yep,
should have taken that scrum?
I do actually, because they've got. I mean to say, when you've got Richie Mo'unga, and the way that Will Jordan, who was probably one of the standout players on the field, even though Tom Sanders was getting a lot of love, I thought
From the
Will Jordan,
officials?
Will Jordan was very, very classy tonight, and I just
Yep.
think you just needed to close the door on the Chiefs, take their crowd out of it, and that was the perfect opportunity. You are only ever going to be a penalty goal ahead, and when it goes down that path, I think it's basically rolling the dice, is what I'm saying, and that's what they did. Roll the dice, and it didn't play out.
You agree with Gavin in terms of the fact that the Chiefs getting away with a bit at the breakdown. I thought that you're talking about Tom Sanders, Colonel Sanders, getting a bit of love. I felt that he was getting a bit of love from the commentators, because I actually felt that he was going in the side when he was pilfering some of those penalties that he got.
Listen, I haven't got an issue with the breakdown. You've got three officials there. If they can't get it right, we're watching from the comfort of our lounge couches at home, and
With a blankie on.
yeah, with with a blankie on from different angles. You've got the referees that are right there. Yeah, there's some there that you sort of look at the time, but boy, the officials have only got split second timing to basically make a decision. I listen. I thought one area where the Chiefs were dominant tonight was just in terms of the speed of the ball that they were getting. It was really quick. If you actually think about some of the ball that the Crusaders were getting to at times, that even Mo'unga had to stop still and sort of look around for options,
Yeah, but that's what that's what we've always talked about. And when Sims says, like, when the Crusaders were going on those unbeaten track, it's just like the teams were just giving, particularly Mo'unga, just too much time and space. The Highlanders and now the Chiefs have sped that up and shut that time down a bit. Now he's still class, and he still buys himself time, right? He makes time, but at least you're sort of starting to give him a few less options, rather than sort of saying, here's a buffet, pick what you want.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. When you look at the Chiefs ball, on the other hand, some of that ball was quick, and there was so many options, and their ball movement in the main, apart from the odd area here and there, was in the main was very, very quick. They were moving it to the edges, really quickly. We saw a couple of occasions where the likes of Tia got on the outside, and Etienne Nana Satoro as well, who had I thought probably one of his better games.
Yes.
Really, really good. Where I'd like to see the Chiefs use him a little bit more is through the middle of the paddock on returns. Get him on those one-on-one matchups. With tight forwards that are defending. What I don't want from him is going in looking for work coming off his wing, and then running straight into the tight. That's not what you want to do.
I think you look for your wingers. You don't want to be redundant on the wing. So come in and do a bit of work with the forwards when but you're right. You look at Will Jordan returning the ball, or in the midfield with a bit of space. Saturo, I think, tonight was the best that we've seen. I think he's got a lot more potential, and they just got to give him the ball with a bit more time and space around to try and use the stepping to break that line, and I think he'll do it.
Listen, the guy who actually reminds me is actually from another code is Roger Tuivasa Sheck. The way that he very similar running style, got the step as well, got that immediate strength. With ENS, all you've got to do is utilize those little skills that he's got well. Don't ask him to do too much. You want him to beat 2 or 3 players and then look around. Get the offload going. But at the end of the day, this was a deserved win to the Chiefs. Make no bones about that. Because I thought their pack from 1 to 8 just worked out of their skins. Luke, he's funny. We mentioned Luke Jacobson last night, sort of compared to a heavyweight Hoskins Satutu. What you saw from Jacobson is this style of game. I mean to say, whether this style of game tonight would be good enough to take to international level, because you and I both know that
Another step up.
that rugby's not played like the level that we saw
No.
tonight. But you got to give Luke Jacobson a hell of a lot of credit. Boy, he's got a really good skill set, and with Boshier and Brown, how often did you hear those three names mentioned all the time? And the two locks just worked overtime. And when you consider their rookie locks, wow.
21. And that's so like, I mean, sitting on the bench, as you said, on our nice comfortable couch here with our blankie, and the fact, and there's my 10-year-old son's sort of like going, "Oh, Mum's having a great game," and it's just like, when you think those two locks, it's their handling as well, So obviously they've got a bit of basketball background. It's just so obvious, isn't it? And the fact that the way that they can take the ball to the line and they're still able to offload or whatever. And when we say they're 21, and the key thing to me, is the fact that they're 21 is the fact that they'll pack on a bit of beef, and they'll become bigger players. And the future for those two is just massive, I reckon.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. And another player who, gee whiz, if he can get his line out throwing right, Sobasone
Takiaho. Well, I thought his line out throwing was actually pretty on point tonight, wasn't it?
What I kind of mean is consistently.
Consistent. Yeah, sure.
Good tonight, but I want to see that consistent part of his game.
Ball of energy.
Oh, he is just a ball of energy. He gives you go forward. He gets you over the advantage lines. He'll put his head into dark places on the breakdown. He was superb. You look at their front rows. Angus Carvalho, probably his best game of this evening. Aiden Ross on the other side. And that's what I mean. Okay, Tom Sanders, according to the commentators, was having a good game. Well, he was having such a good game because the other seven, we never heard from them.
Yep.
And that's why.
Good point. Very good point, actually. Very good point. And look, I mean, it's. I suppose I think you have to say that the Chiefs did deserve that win. Going right back to what I said is that even though the Crusaders, every time they went down on 22, they did come away with points pretty much every time. So that's where really the rest of the game was owned by the Chiefs. And I think the big part of that is that you see they missed the influence of a Whitelock. And I've banged on about the fact is that the power of the Crusaders scrum comes from their second row when they've got Whitelock and Barrett in the second row. And tonight, that scrum wasn't powerful, and there was no Whitelock and there's no Barrett in the second row. Barrett on the side, but Whitelock brings a massive amount to that game, just like Aaron Smith to the Highlanders from halfback, right? And Whitelock is their big player, I think. Even though Mainga does all the fancy stuff, Whitelock's the one that gives them that impetus. When things are turning custard, he's the one that gets it right as well.
Oh, you're so right. And I suppose the good news for the other, I was going to say three teams that you could arguably say the Hurricanes are probably out of the running. So you're contended to play the Crusaders in the final is either looking at the Chiefs Blues or the Highlanders. So one of those three teams could basically sneak in. The hope for those teams is the Crusaders are beatable. They're not impenetrable. They probably should have lost that game to the Hurricanes a week ago as
absolutely
well, which would have been unprecedented when you think about the way that the season started. And boy, big ups to the Chiefs as well. Have I lost count here? Is that their third or fourth?
I think that's their fourth.
I might have to go to Tribe to look at that.
They won. They won the one against the Canes, then the Blues, then and then the Chiefs. Yes, the Chiefs, and obviously an extra time. So that's 4 in a row. Yeah.
Oh wow! What a turnaround from these
guys. And I actually think, like watching tonight's game, that I think tonight's game out of all of those 4 games is the massive confidence boost for them. And I actually think that there's potential left in that Chiefs squad. And when you think about it, we've talked about the Boshiers and the Jacobsons. They're locking. They're stars in the making, but they're not stars that we're used to. They're not household names. They're guys that are improving their game still.
Yeah. The other thing is they're senior guys stood up tonight. And what I actually enjoyed about Damien McKenzie, he didn't try to do too much tonight. In this
Yes.
game, if you think about the way that
The last time
Damien
he was
played,
10.
yeah, exactly. Usually he's trying to do everything.
Yep.
He's trying to make, but tonight he linked a little bit more. He put up some really good up and unders that created a lot of pressure. But if you look at the Chiefs across the board, the senior players stood up there. All Blacks stood up. Tavals, he basically stood up. You sort of look to Tupavai, you know.
Yep.
He stood up. Jacobson stood up. Halfback Weber stood up. And boy, one of the guys that stood up big time, Anton Leonard-Brown. I didn't realise he had that much pace. But, you know, he got on the outside, left Nuku in his dust.
Yes, that was actually, they talked about him going around Sanders, but if you actually watch it closely, he actually runs away from Whaunukunuku as well.
Oh, absolutely. And he was on fire tonight. And, you know, you and I have been watching this game for a long time, and we've always said, if a team is to win a game, you need 6 to 8 players standing up. And on this night of all nights, even though the scoreboard doesn't show it.
Look, I mean, I think I've alluded to it. I think the Chiefs were more dominant than the scoreboard actually reflects.
Yeah. Probably that's a very fair comment. I think it flattered.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, it's a bit of a shame. I honestly think, you know, a Quintupaya, not taking anything away from Alex Nankivell because he made that awesome break as well. You know, we went between two forwards and genuinely didn't burn them. He actually busted them. But I think a Quintupaya tonight in that Chiefs backline would have added something, another dimension to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, as I said, there's plenty of potential still in that Chiefs team. I don't think they're the finished item by any stretch of the imagination.
And 4 in a row. And credit to interim coach Clayton McMillan. And even more credit to Nick White, their scrum coach as well. If you think back to that very first game they played against the Crusaders down in Christchurch, boy, they got pasted at scrum time. So to turn that around, and I tend to agree with you. Yeah, the Crusaders can use the injuries as an excuse, but every team's had them. I mean, you say the Chiefs have got a few out.
Everybody's got
Highlanders last night, nowhere near full strength last night.
No.
Too good for a disappointing Blues side. Hey, you know
what? But
2 weeks in a row, really good rugby, Ashwin.
Good. Oh, look, that game tonight. I don't. To be honest, I don't actually think that the game last night was actually great rugby. Tense. I mean, especially as a fan watching the game, tense. But tonight's game, I actually thought the quality of it was actually pretty good as well, though.
Yeah, I'd definitely go along with that. I mean, to say you could just see that in the amount of ball movement, some of the tries, just breathtaking. You know, Will Jordan, he knows how to get himself in a really good spot, and boy, he must be putting a ton of pressure on Foster to really look at him as a fullback, because you know what, I don't want to see him on the wing.
No, not only that, but look, it's like, you know, it's getting frustrating at All Black level, jumping totally off on a tangent here, but it's getting frustrating at All Black level where we've got guys coming in that have actually got something special about their game, and it's just like, oh, hang on, we're still playing a Geordie Barrett at 15 or a Bowden Barrett at 15 or whatever. You know, it's just like, mate, you got to, these guys have got that spark and there's something special that makes something happen. But bringing it back to the game, I was actually really happy that that break that Jordan made and Brad Weber's captain call. I was so stoked that they actually said that was actually correct in the fact that it was a penalty. Correct. I am so frustrated with those changes. We see it sitting in the West Stand, and I'm not going to, is that we can see it clear as day when the players in front of the player that's going to catch the ball, the defending team's going to catch the ball, the players in front are just ambling across on the line, tracking towards their player. They know exactly what they're doing. They're impeding anybody getting to that player.
One of the old days, players who were impeding would put their hand up, just to say, hey, I'm standing still, I'm putting my hand up, I'm not impeding anybody.
Yeah.
Do not disagree with you at all. Not too sure if you've got the table there, Ashwin, and How'd the
Oh,
actual...
actually, yeah. Hang on, one moment, please, caller. You keep talking, and I'll bring it up.
Yeah, well, this is superb. I see Nocturnal reckon Jordan's break was from blocking.
So that's that's what we're talking about, right? So strange, yeah. I mean, effectively
yeah.
he is an affected line of Saturo from getting across to 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 tackle our friend Jordan there. So
Jordan,
hang on, I'm just gonna.
It was very subtle, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I've got the points table right here, but you
There we
won't
go.
be able to.
It's coming. It's coming. There we go. There we go.
There we go. Oh.
I'll zoom it. There we go. So really is Crusaders. I think will still quite easily finish top of the table. So it's going to be a final down and Orange Theory Stadium. But look, we look at that Chiefs, Blues, and now the Highlanders obviously got a bye next week. So if the Blues do manage to beat the Crusaders down there and the Chiefs manage to beat the Hurricanes, they will be out of it. And then we will effectively have a semi-final at Eden Park if that goes ahead. But that's a big if.
well, incredibly, the Chiefs could mathematically finish the top of the table if the Crusaders unbelievably lose to the Blues.
Lose to the Blues,
which is a big if. And if the Chiefs win their last two, now if the Chiefs won their last two games,
yep.
Wow, could you imagine that if the Chiefs won their last two games and the Blues beat the Crusaders? Wow,
but just imagine. But exactly, what would that do for rugby? That would just make that would just make it a massively. That final would be so big if that did happen. And I think as a Blues supporter today, not Super Rugby, but the Super Rugby under-20s showed why Blues supporters are so bloody frustrated, because at the end of the day, that Blues pack, it's got so much grunt and so much ability, but they never stop playing as individuals. And today the under-20s put on 70 points against the Hurricanes under-20s. And if you saw that under-20s team play against the Crusaders under-20s, they showed no cohesion. That was all individualism, just a classic Blues team, right? But that performance they put on today is what we know, that the ability is there, but they never do it. And they haven't done it since Jesus was around. So, that's the thing, isn't it? And that's the thing that I think is why it's so frustrating being that Blues fan, is the fact of that ability. So, look, it's a real long shot, I think. I mean, you're not going to put any money on the Blues to win next week. I know that for sure. But the reality is that it's not beyond the realms of possibility that the Blues can tip up the Crusaders down there. And the fact is that they know is that extra incentive. They've got to lift their game. They've got to get better if they want to be there around the finals time.
Absolutely. Now, the Chiefs next week, they play the Hurricanes at home, and that's a very winnable game. In fact, that's a game that could basically almost cement a real opportunity to be in those finals, and that would be amazing, especially when you consider how they started the season.
At the beginning of the season, they were the wooden spoon team. They were the wooden spoon team at the beginning of the season. And the thing is that they've actually got a great chance to beat the Hurricanes next week, simply because I think the motivator for the Canes is basically out in Adi Savia. I mean, obviously Geordie Barrett gets them around the paddock into right parts, but Adi Savia is the one that, I mean, we saw the difference in the Canes once he actually went off with about 15-20 to go last week.
Excuse me, don't want to spend too much time on the Blues, but the Blues have to throw the kitchen sink next Sunday and treat it as basically as a final, because they actually have a wonderful opportunity. They still have an outside opportunity to actually host a home final if they can turn it around. To me, that's the biggest test for these coaches. But boy, all of a sudden, we've got some real genuine excitement looking at this table. I'm actually excited and can't wait for next weekend, where probably 3 weekends ago I was thinking, ho hum.
Well,
so we've got a lot to be thankful for the Highlanders.
I mean, we talk about it. I mean, we look at it, even if the Blues go down to the Crusaders next week, it still actually gives sort of almost like two semi-finals, I think, because then the Highlanders will be looking to win. If the Canes tip up the Chiefs and the Crusaders trip up the Blues, then you got 3 teams all alive in the last weekend to make it into the that second place.
Oh, some of these teams will be just absolutely humming, and you're right. In the actual chat, you said you felt the Blues were on a bit of a downward trend, but we know when they put it together, they can play some rugby. But whether they have got the personnel in the key positions to make this happen, I'm not so sure. And of course, they're probably going to lose the likes of Alex Hodgman for probably 3 or 4
he's gone
weeks.
for the season. He's gone for the rest of the season, basically. Yeah. And then James Lay's. I just saw today that James Lay's actually injured, so that actually does leave him a hole. I don't know. I mean, we've talked about the 4 props there. That they've had strength there. I don't know who's there after that. So, there's definitely going to be a bit of a hole there, and not a good one. But on the Crusaders side of it, not great for them. Lester Nuku going off an HIA, not coming back on. Usually we see if they do go and they don't come back on, they're probably going to sit out another week at least, if not more, with a hit with concussion.
I'd like to feel a little sorry for them, but having known what over the years what the Chiefs have gone through with injuries, probably the most injury hit New Zealand franchise in probably a decade. I know the Blues have gone through that whole scenario of injuries, and I think that's probably also affected the Highlanders and the Hurricanes, and the Crusaders have been the least affected when it's come to injuries in these last 5 or 6 years, and that's not taking any of their achievements over the years, but it's just the way it is. This is where you rely on the strength of depth.
Look, Jordan, obviously, I think we probably should wrap it up. But Jordan sort of talking about the fact that the Chiefs didn't give away stupid penalties like the Blues. Look, the key thing there is the fact is that what was achieved by not giving away stupid penalties is the fact is that you don't give the Crusaders the chance to get back into your territory. That's it.
That's where they were very. It's a really good point, Ashwin. Where that's a very similar point to how the Highlanders actually played the Crusaders. They made them play out of their half. And you know what? If you're holding on to your ball all the time and creating a whole lot of pressure, well, guess what?
Look, I mean, let's be fair here. I mean, the Crusaders' defense is something else. It is, even though they lost. The amount of ball that the Chiefs had, the Crusaders' defense is something else in terms of the way that they can defend their line. Some might say, and it is. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of penalties given away, but then you also saw, I thought, in that second half, how when they know that they can't afford to give any more penalties away, miraculously, they didn't really come, did they?
No. They didn't come at all. Hey, just before you go, as well, Ashwin, and you wrap the show up, I'll be posting some videos tomorrow from Auckland Club Rugby. I was out at Shedbolt Park today watching the home side Suburbs play Papa Toi Toi, so I've got 4 very good interviews that I'll be posting on the New Zealand Sport Radio channel. Please, can you like these? Not for my sake, more for our master at arms who's covering the Chiefs game. That's Paul Baines tonight, and I'm pretty sure Paul will be posting some interviews as well.
Yeah. Look, guys, get in there, watch those interviews, and all the footage that comes through. It's great that Steve and Paul, when he's not at the Chiefs game, can go around and put some club rugby interviews up. Sure, please, share. Don't just like, but share them. Gets it out there, and it's just helps us to get a bit more traction all around. But look, great win from the Chiefs tonight. It's getting very exciting. We thought it was going to be a boring competition, but no. It's all been turned on its head, and it's become a very exciting competition. We're all looking forward to next week's edition, and you can come back right here on New Zealand Sport Radio, and we'll look at those matches from next week, and you've got all the shows during the week to look forward to, and we will see you back here at some stage during the week. Thank you very much.
8 p.m. tomorrow night, folks. For wrap.
8 p.m. tomorrow night for the review of Super Rugby from the weekend. Yep, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
See you all. Yay, you got it in.